The Thompson family reunion was always a celebration, the kind of event that brought distant relatives together under the summer sun. This year's gathering was special. A new home, a sprawling Victorian estate that had been the talk of the town. The house came with a massive backyard, complete with a large, inviting pool that shimmered under the afternoon light. The smell of sizzling barbecue filled the air. Children's laughter echoed as they played games, and adults chatted over drinks, reminiscing about old times. It was the kind of picture-perfect summer day you'd see in a postcard. But from the very start, there was something about the pool that felt off. The water seemed unnaturally still, as if resisting the playful splash of the children diving in. The air around it felt colder than the rest of the yard, and more than once, someone commented on how strange the lighting seemed. But no one dwelled on it for long, too absorbed in the festivities. Jamie, the youngest member of the family, was known for his boundless energy and curiosity. Yet today, he was uncharacteristically subdued. He stood at the edge of the pool, his small figure silhouetted against the rippling water. When his Aunt Laura noticed him, she approached with a smile. "Why aren't you swimming, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Jamie didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the pool, his expression blank. When he finally spoke, his voice was a whisper, barely audible over the sounds of the party. "She's waiting for me." Laura chuckled nervously, assuming it was a child's game. "Who's waiting for you?" "The lady in the water," Jamie replied, his tone devoid of emotion. A chill ran down Laura's spine, but she quickly shook it off. Children had vivid imaginations, she reminded herself. Yet as the hours passed, Jamie's behavior became more unsettling. He refused to leave the edge of the pool, ignoring his parents' calls to come eat or join the games. His lips moved constantly, as though carrying on a conversation with someone unseen. By late afternoon, the mood of the party had shifted. Several children complained of feeling cold in the pool, despite the summer heat. One child, Lily, emerged from the water crying, insisting that something had grabbed her foot. Her parents dismissed it as a figment of her imagination, but the other children hesitated to go back in. Jamie's parents, growing increasingly concerned, decided it was time for him to take a break. His father gently grabbed his shoulder, but Jamie jerked away with an unexpected strength. His eyes, usually warm and bright, were wide and glassy. "You can't stop her," he muttered. The sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The pool's reflection seemed darker than it should have been, the water almost black. The adults started packing up, preparing to move the festivities inside. It was then that they realized Jamie was missing. Panic erupted as the family searched the house and yard, calling his name. Flashlights cut through the growing darkness, their beams bouncing off the still surface of the pool. Then came the scream. Jamie's cousin, a teenager named Ethan, stood frozen by the pool, pointing into the water. The others rushed to his side, and there, at the bottom of the pool, was Jamie. He wasn't floating or struggling. He was standing upright, his feet planted on the pool floor, his small body unnaturally still. His mother screamed as his father dove in, pulling Jamie to the surface. But when they laid him on the ground, his clothes were completely dry, and his skin was ice cold. His eyes opened slowly, and he spoke words that would haunt the family forever. "She wants all of you." The family fled the house that very night, leaving behind food, belongings, and unanswered questions. Jamie was taken to the hospital, where doctors found nothing wrong with him physically. Yet, he refused to speak of what happened, his once cheerful demeanor replaced by a haunting silence. Weeks later, the Thompsons learned the dark history of their new home. Decades ago, A woman had lived there with her 3 children. Overwhelmed by despair, she had drowned them one by one in the pool before taking her own life. Locals whispered that her spirit never left, her anger and grief binding her to the water. Neighbors shared chilling stories of past owners who experienced strange phenomena, unexplained drownings, whispers in the night, and a persistent feeling of being watched near the pool. The house remained vacant after the Thompsons' departure, its once beautiful pool now overgrown and forgotten. As for Jamie, he never swam again. Even the sight of a bathtub sent him into fits of panic. Every summer, as others celebrated with pool parties and beach trips, the Thompsons stayed indoors, haunted by the memory of that day. And Jamie, now an adult, still wakes up some nights with the sensation of cold, clammy hands gripping his ankles, and the echo of a woman's voice whispering, "I'm still waiting." In a small, unassuming town surrounded by rolling hills, an abandoned community pool sat at the edge of a dense forest, hidden from view by years of neglect. Once a bustling summer destination, the pool had become a forgotten relic. Rusting gates, shattered tiles, and a faint lingering smell of chlorine were all that remained of its former glory. The water, murky and stagnant, seemed to absorb the sunlight instead of reflecting it. The pool had been closed for nearly 2 decades, following a series of tragic drownings. Locals whispered that it was cursed, but the official reports attributed the deaths to a mix of accidents and poor maintenance. Over time, the stories grew darker, fueled by rumors of eerie sounds, mysterious figures, and the haunting presence of something that lingered beneath the surface. Parents warned their children to stay away, and most people did. Most, but not all. Jenny, Mike, Sarah, and a group of their friends were thrill seekers, always searching for the next adrenaline rush. That summer, they had exhausted the usual teenage adventures, bonfires, late-night dares, and urban exploration. The abandoned pool, shrouded in mystery, became their ultimate challenge. "Come on," Mike had said with a grin, his voice full of bravado. "It's just a pool. What's the worst that could happen?" Jenny wasn't so sure. She had heard the stories, and something about the pool made her uneasy. Still, peer pressure and the promise of adventure were hard to resist. So, on a humid Friday night, armed with flashlights, snacks, and a Bluetooth speaker, they made their way to the forgotten site. The air felt heavier as they approached, the sounds of the forest fading into an unnatural silence. They climbed the rusted fence, the metal groaning under their weight, and landed on cracked concrete littered with weeds and debris. The pool loomed before them, its dark water eerily still, as if waiting. "Creepy," Sarah said, shivering despite the warm night. "Perfect," Mike replied, setting down his backpack. They spread out their blankets and snacks near the pool's edge, the glow of their flashlights casting long, distorted shadows. The group laughed and talked, their voices filling the air as they tried to ignore the uneasy atmosphere. It started innocently enough. Jokes, dares, and a few nervous glances at the water. Then, someone suggested swimming. "No way," Jenny said immediately. "Scared?" Mike teased, already pulling off his shirt. "It's not safe," she insisted, but her voice faltered when she saw the looks of mockery in her friend's eyes. Mike was the first to jump in. The water, surprisingly cold, sent ripples across the surface. He emerged laughing, splashing the others who sat on the edge. See? Nothing to worry about. Encouraged, a few others joined him, their laughter breaking the stillness. Jenny stayed back, her eyes fixed on the water. Something felt wrong. The air seemed colder near the pool, and the shadows cast by their flashlights danced unnaturally across the surface. Then she heard it, a whisper. At first it was faint, barely audible over the laughter and splashing. She thought it was her imagination, but the voice grew louder, more distinct. "Jenny!" She froze, her flashlight trembling in her hand. The voice was coming from the pool. Slowly she turned the beam of light toward the water. Her breath caught in her throat. A pale figure stood waist deep in the pool, its features obscured by shadows. The figure didn't move, but Jenny felt its gaze locked on her. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Her friends laughed nervously, dismissing her fear. "It's probably just your reflection," Sarah said. "Yeah," Mike added, "or a trick of the light." But Jenny knew what she saw. The figure wasn't her reflection. It was something else. Mike, ever the daredevil, swam closer to where Jenny's flashlight pointed. "Relax," he said, grinning. "There's nothing." He didn't finish his sentence. The figure lunged, grabbing Mike with unnatural speed and dragging him under. His scream was muffled by the water, a chilling sound that sent the group into a frenzy. "Mike!" Sarah screamed, leaning over the edge. Bubbles and thrashing broke the surface as Mike struggled against an invisible force. When he finally emerged, his face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. "It's not letting go," he gasped. The group scrambled to pull him out, their hands slipping on his wet skin. When they finally succeeded, Mike collapsed on the ground, shivering uncontrollably. His legs bore deep, jagged wounds, as if something had clawed at him. "You need to go," Jenny said, her voice barely above a whisper. They grabbed their belongings and ran, leaving behind their laughter and bravado. The air grew colder as they fled, and the whispers followed them, growing louder and more frantic. The police were called the next day. When authorities drained the pool, they uncovered a gruesome discovery: human bones at the bottom, tangled in the muck and debris. Forensic analysis revealed that the remains belonged to a man who had drowned years ago under mysterious circumstances. The man had a violent past, known for pulling others into the water during his lifetime. Locals believed that even in death, his thirst for victims hadn't ended. The pool was filled with concrete shortly after, but the whispers never stopped. People who passed by the site at night claimed to hear their names called, faint and haunting. Jenny, Mike, and the others never spoke of that night again, but the experience left its mark. Mike developed a fear of water, unable to even shower without feeling phantom hands pulling at him. Jenny moved away, unable to stay in the town that held so many dark memories. The abandoned pool remains a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers that lurk in the places we forget. Some say the man's spirit still lingers, waiting for the next group of foolish adventurers to trespass into his watery domain. In the heart of a dense forest stood a luxurious vacation home. Its main attraction, a stunning infinity pool overlooking the wilderness. For a group of young adults, it was the ultimate getaway. They arrived on a Friday evening, their laughter and excitement filling the air. The first night was magical. The pool shimmered under the moonlight, the water inviting and serene. As the group lounged by the edge, Natalie noticed something odd. The pool's reflection of the moon seemed wrong. The light distorted and rippled, as if the water were alive. She brushed it off as her imagination, until she felt something brush against her leg under the water. A chill ran down her spine. She asked if anyone else felt it, but her friends laughed, blaming it on the cool night air. Moments later, Mark, The strongest swimmer cried out. He was pulled under with such force that the others barely had time to react. When they finally dragged him out, he was bleeding from deep, jagged wounds on his legs. The group panicked, scrambling out of the water as the pool began to churn violently. Then, from the depths, a shadowy figure emerged, a humanoid shape, its eyes glowing an unnatural red. It hovered at the water's edge, its gaze fixed on them, before vanishing back into the dark water with a guttural roar. They abandoned the house, their weekend ruined and their lives forever changed. Weeks later, they learned the truth about the infinity pool. The property had been built over a burial ground, and despite countless attempts to exorcise the spirits, the water remained cursed. Even now, the house stands empty, the pool's surface undisturbed, but filled with a darkness that no one dares to challenge.